live from the drama-free true crime destination. No doubts, no delays, just the facts, the fire, and the finality that stands tall. This is the final word. Good and a good Friday morning here on the West Coast, early Friday afternoon on the East Coast, wherever you are in this great country of ours. Welcome to a special AM edition of The Final Word. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw, and today this is part of a day-night doubleheader. This is still our end of the week moment to slow it down, look back, and make sense of all the stories that carried us here. I'm so glad you can join me this morning, wherever you are. Still, we have no noise, no sensationalism, just a clear grounded look at what happened, why it matters, and what we take into the weekend. This is the AM edition, so let's talk about it. We kick things off in Fort Worth, Texas, where Tanner Horner is still in his penalty phase for the killing of a 7-year-old Athena Strand. In this story, we find out that he sang the song Jingle Bell Rock while Athena screamed for her life. Watch your screens. Okay, here we go. We are in Fort Worth, Texas. And yes, Tanner Horner sang Jingle Bell Rock as 7-year-old Athena Strand screamed in terror. That's according to newly surfaced reports. It's a detail that prosecutors say exposes the chilling mindset behind her abduction and murder. Investigators reviewing Horner's past arrest statements and evidence say he admitted to singing the Christmas classic while Athena cried and begged for help inside his FedEx truck. The revelation adds another disturbing layer to a case already defined by cruelty, panic, and a series of confessions that have shifted over time. Let's go to the article itself. Shocking and disturbing evidence played out in a Texas courtroom on Thursday as jurors were forced to hear a 7-year-old girl's final moments. 35-year-old Tanner Lynn Horner pleaded guilty to kidnapping and killing Athena Strand in the moments before his jury trial began. The trial moved forward, however, because prosecutors are seeking the death penalty. The jury will be tasked with recommending whether Horner lives or dies at the close of evidence. Athena was abducted from outside her family's home on November 30th, 2022. Horner had been working for a contractor to deliver packages for FedEx and snatched the little girl after delivering a box of Barbies intended to be the child's Christmas gift. Now, I'm gonna stop right there, and I am going to put up my trigger warning because the next line in the article says the following story contains graphic descriptions of child abuse. So, knowing this, I am putting this up, and if you have a problem listening to this, I would suggest you turn away now. There you go. The media was ordered to shut off its cameras on Thursday. I believe this was last Thursday, when prosecutors presented some of the most disturbing evidence in their case against Horner. The van Horner drove on the day he abducted and killed Athena was equipped with cameras both inside and outside. At 4:09 p.m. on November 30th, before he approached Athena's home, he placed what investigators believed to be a sticky note over the camera inside the van, preventing it from recording any video of what happened. The camera's microphone, however, captured everything. He arrived at Athena's home at approximately 5:30 p.m. Reporters for WFAA, who were inside the courtroom as the evidence played, described what happened in that van as torture and said the jurors were either sobbing or listening to it or glaring at the defendant. The audio captured Horner asking Athena to take off her shirt. She replied that her mother taught her to say no to such requests. When Athena asks why is this happening, Horner tells her she's pretty. Previous testimony in the case revealed that there was no evidence of sexual penetration of Athena's body. But people who listened to the audio recording played in court say there was no question that something sexual was going on. Athena can be heard crying throughout the recording. Death didn't come quickly for the victim. The audio revealed that Horner attempted to strangle the child multiple times. Reporters say said they believed her to be dead several times before they would then later hear a gasp or a moan. As Horner is driving the van, the radio can be heard playing Jingle Bell Rock. Courtroom reporters, that's according to courtroom reporters. Horner is heard trying to sing along as Athena screams in the background, prompting him to repeatedly yell at her to shut up. Media's cameras were turned back on after Athena's death to reveal Horner smoking a cigarette, driving silently in the van with the doors to the back area closed. After disposing of Athena's naked body at a river crossing, Horner proceeded to take his van to a gas station to clean it up. Video from inside the van shows him on his hands and knees in the back of the van, scrubbing and cleaning with cleaning supplies he got at the Love's gas station. Then places a phone call to someone at work, claiming that he just stopped to clean the van because he had thrown up. Horner asked to be assigned the same van the next day because of the smell. Horner then makes another phone call to an unidentified person, repeating the claim that he had thrown up after eating something that upset his stomach. Before the video ends, Horner can be seen gathering items from the front seat and putting them into a backpack. Those items include the jeans and underwear Athena was wearing when she was abducted. Horner returned to the area where he dumped Athena's body the next day. Video from inside his truck shows him appearing frustrated by blocked roads when he insists he has packages to deliver. Officers explain to him they're searching for a missing girl. The prosecution rested its case after showing the videos to the jury. The jury will not return to hear the defense's case until Wednesday. Before then, attorneys will conduct evidentiary hearings in their absence. The media's cameras were not permitted at those hearings. And I believe we have an update as to the decision in this case. I'm looking now, and I believe that's day 11. And no, not yet. Not yet. It's so basically what we found out was this. Here's the details. Reports indicate Horner he sang Jingle Bell Rock during the abduction. Prosecutors viewed this as a sign of emotional attachment, which is a moment where he treated a child's terror as background noise. Those same reports has Athena showing Athena was screaming and crying and screaming as Horner drove away from her home after striking her with his FedEx truck and panicking. Or at least that's part of what Horner said. The legal significance is that this detail strengthens the state's argument that Horner acted with awareness, not confusion or accident. It undermines any claim that he was overwhelmed or dissociating. Horner has already admitted in interviews and letters that he struck Athena, abducted her, attempted to break her neck, and ultimately killed her. This new detail fits the prosecution's narrative of escalating deliberate violence. For Athena's family, especially her mother, who has publicly said she has one question for her daughter's killer, each new revelation deepens the emotional toll as they await trial, or actually await the jury's decision. And as far as the case posture goes, Horner remains jailed on capital murder and kidnapping charges. Prosecutors have not announced whether they are seeking the death penalty, and that's where we are at this point. Will the jury decide to sentence him to death or life in prison? Those are that's what awaits as we as we um as we wait the jury. Next up, we got a new one for you. A Florida doctor is charged with manslaughter after allegedly removing the wrong organ. All right. First of all, let me take this trigger warning off now. All right. We are in Defuniak Springs, Florida, where a doctor is facing manslaughter charges after he allegedly removed the wrong organ from a patient during surgery. Yeah, Florida surgeon Dr. Thomas Shagnovsky is charged with manslaughter after allegedly removing the wrong organ during a procedure. That's a mistake prosecutors say crossed the line from medical error into criminal negligence. Investigators say Dr. Shagnovsky performed surgery on a patient and removed an organ that was not diseased, not indicated, and not part of the planned procedure. The patient later died from the complications tied directly to that removal, prompting the state to file criminal charges. Here's what we got. 44-year-old Dr. Thomas Shagnovsky was indicted by a Walton County grand jury on a single charge of second-degree manslaughter in the death of his patient, 70-year-old William Bryan. Bryan and his wife, who lived in Alabama, were on vacation in Florida when Bryan fell ill. A hospital report reviewed by Court TV indicates he was admitted to Ascension Sacred Heart Emerald Coast Hospital and was diagnosed with having multiple issues with his spleen that required surgery. Bryan initially demurred, saying he wanted to be discharged and return the 5 hours home to Alabama. But when his condition worsened, he ultimately agreed to the surgery. On August 21st, 2024, Bryan was supposed to undergo a routine laparoscopic splenectomy. But investigators say instead of removing the patient's spleen, Shagnovsky removed his liver instead. Shagnovsky's operative report makes no reference to the alleged error. The spleen was exposed, noted to be severely deformed, the defendant wrote in his report. Spleen noted to be quite friable, and certainly the large side made the dissection challenging. The word liver does not appear in the report. Joe Zarzor, an attorney retained by Bryan's family, told Law and Crime that the mistake goes beyond the realm of accidental. You can't accidentally take out someone's liver, he said. And the reason you can't accidentally take out somebody's liver is that it has more connection points than most any other organ in the body. So when you take out the liver, you have to basically dissect it out carefully because it has so many different connection points that nobody, not even a brand new surgeon, would not know they're taking out the liver. Walton County Sheriff Michael Atkinson said in a statement announcing the indictment that our duty is to follow the facts wherever they lead, without fear or favor. The grand jury has spoken, and our responsibility is to ensure the charges are carried out through the proper legal process. Our thoughts remain with the victim's family and their unspeakable loss. In a video statement posted to YouTube, Zarzor claimed that this wasn't the first time Shaknovsky has made a critical error. Perhaps most concerning is that Dr. Shaknovsky had a previous wrong site surgery in 2023, where he mistakenly removed a portion of a patient's pancreas instead of performing the intended adrenal gland resection. Zarzor warned that the defendant may still be treating patients for the U.S. military. The military system is not tied to any particular state, and I guess he has figured out a way to continue practicing medicine and not disclose what is going on in his civilian life. Shaknovsky was released from custody on a $75,000 bond. He is due to return in court for a hearing on May 19th. Ladies and gentlemen, before I break down the details, all I can say is this man is dangerous. I'm not saying that just giving my opinion. Just reading the article. This doctor is dangerous. I mean, don't believe me? Here's the details. Prosecutors claim Shaknovsky removed an organ that was healthy and unrelated to the patient's condition, calling it a catastrophic deviation from accepted medical practice. I'm no MD. I'm no MD, RN, or any of that. But this is dangerous to me. The patient outcome: the patient reportedly suffered a rapid decline following the surgery, with medical examiners linking the death to the organ removal. While surgical mistakes are typically handled through civil malpractice, prosecutors argue this case meets the standard for manslaughter because the act was so reckless it demonstrated a disregard for human life. The hospital's response: the facility where Shaknovsky practiced has not publicly detailed the internal findings, but confirmed he is no longer performing surgeries there. The state medical board is reviewing the case, and Shaknovsky could face suspension or revocation of his license depending on the outcome. I hope that's possible. I really hope it's more revocation than suspension. Anyway, the defense's posture is the legal team has not issued a detailed statement, but is expected to argue that the incident was a tragic medical error and not a crime. Ladies and gentlemen, think about it. You're a doctor. You're a doctor about to perform surgery on a 70-year-old man's spleen, but instead of the spleen, you take away his liver. You remove his liver. That's not a mistake that any doctor can make, or can afford to make, I should say. That's when that'll give me the heebie-jeebies, and I would not want to have. If I need to have surgery, I would not want him on my team. Next up, the father of the Georgia school shooter is going to be sentenced this summer. Colin Gray, the father of accused Georgia school shooter Colt Gray, is set to face sentencing this summer after being convicted of 29 counts, including second-degree murder for giving his son access to the rifle used in the 2024 Appalachia High School massacre. Yeah. It said the Georgia jury found Colin Gray criminally responsible for enabling the attack to kill 2 students and 2 teachers and injured 9 others. Prosecutors argued that he ignored glaring warnings about his son's deteriorating mental state and still gifted him the AR-style rifle used in the shooting. Here's the breakdown. While Colin Gray wasn't present at the school at the time of the shooting, his then 14-year-old son Colt Gray is accused of carrying out the shooting. Teachers 39-year-old Richard Aspinwall and 53-year-old Christina Urimi were killed in the shooting, along with students Mason Shimmerhorn and Christian Angulo, both 14. Prosecutors had argued that Gray maintained a criminal responsibility for the shooting because he gifted his son the weapon he allegedly used to carry out the murders. This is a weapon that I want you to shoot when we go to the range. And if you keep doing really good in going to school and doing all the things you should, you graduate and you're 18. This will be your gun. Colin Gray testified at trial that he said this to his son. Colt Gray's mother, Macy Gray, testified that she had urged her husband to lock up the weapons out of concern for their son. Testimony from Colin Gray's trial included evidence that Colt Gray had an active interest in school shooters and had built what prosecutors described as a shrine to Nicholas Cruz in his room. Nicholas Cruz, as you remember, was convicted of the 2018 shooting in Parkland, Florida, that killed 17 people in 2018. An order was issued last Friday that the court set aside 2 days for Colin Gray's sentencing, which will begin on July 28th. Colt Gray, who was indicted on a total of 55 counts, including murder and 25 counts of aggravated assault, has pleaded not guilty and has an upcoming status hearing on May 28th. Colt Gray's attorney told the court at a hearing last year that his client was leaning toward pleading guilty, but was waiting for a psychological report. So now here's all the details. We got the sentencing timeline, which, as we heard, was July 28th. The judge scheduled the sentencing where Gray's faced the possibility of decades to life in prison. The breakdown of the conviction: Gray was found guilty of second-degree murder, involuntary manslaughter, cruelty to children, and reckless conduct, which is a rare and nationally significant verdict holding a parent accountable for a school shooting. All I can say is let's go back to the Crumblies. All of them were sitting behind bars. The prosecutor's argument said Gray was the one person who could have prevented this, citing his decision to buy the rifle despite documented threats, violent behavior, and a mass shooter shrine in Colt's room. The defense's stance is that Gray's attorneys argued that he misjudged his son's instability but never intended harm. The jury rejected that argument in under 2 hours. The impact on the national president is that this is only the second time in U.S. history a parent has been convicted of murder for enabling a school shooting, signaling a growing legal trend toward parental accountability. As I've mentioned, Colt Gray is now awaiting his own trial, facing 55 felony counts, including murder, and he has pleaded not guilty. So we wait for July 28th to roll around to see how much time Colin Gray has before the next status hearing for Colt Gray. Next up, Caleb Flynn wants the jury to see the scene as he's been charged with his wife's murder. Former American Idol contestant Caleb Flynn, charged with murdering his pregnant wife, now wants jurors to see the crime scene, a move his defense says is crucial to understanding his version. Caleb Flynn's attorneys have filed a motion asking the court to allow the jury to physically walk through the Tip City home where Ashley Flynn was killed. They argue that only an in-person view can show the layout, distances, and sight lines that support Flynn's claim that the shooting was part of a staged burglary gone wrong, not a premeditated act. We're in Troy, Ohio, where the trial for former reality contestant accused of killing his wife has been scheduled for May, less than 6 months after the victim's death. Caleb Flynn pleaded not guilty to charges of murder and tampering with evidence of the death of his wife, Ashley Flynn. Ashley, age 37, was found dead in the couple's home on February 16, 2026, after the defendant called 911 to report a shooting and a home invasion. Detectives say they determined that there was never a home invasion, and it was Caleb Flynn who shot his wife with a 9mm handgun. Caleb Flynn's trial was initially scheduled to begin on April 28th, but prosecutors requested a brief delay to comply with disclosure laws after receiving an expert report. The defense opposed the delay, urging the judge to move forward, saying that the defendant wants a speedy trial. Ultimately, Judge Janine Pratt sided with the prosecutors, briefly delaying the case. She scheduled the trial to begin on May 4th, 2026. Caleb Flynn's defense has only filed a single motion so far in the case, asking that the jury be taken to the scene for review during the trial. Prosecutors have not filed any response to the motion. Caleb Flynn briefly appeared on TV's American Idol in its 12th season, but failed to advance beyond the preliminary rounds in Hollywood. In an interview on the show, he described himself as a music pastor. The parties are due to return to court for a motions hearing and status conference, which is already done, and we'll see where this leads next. So here's the details and strategies. Caleb Flynn's team says a scene visit will help jurors see what Caleb saw, including the angles, the lighting, and the room placement they believe bolster his account. Prosecution pushes back by arguing the request is unnecessary and potentially manipulative, noting that the home has changed since the 2022 killing and no longer reflects the conditions of the night Ashley died. Excuse me. A jury view is rare in murder cases and typically granted only when photographs, diagrams, and video cannot adequately convey the environment. Caleb Flynn faces multiple counts including aggravated murder, felonious assault, and tampering with evidence. He has pleaded not guilty, as I've mentioned. Ashley Flynn was several weeks pregnant at the time of her death, a fact prosecutors say underscores the brutality of the crime. What's next? The judge will rule on the request in an upcoming pretrial hearing. If granted, the visit would become a major moment in the trial's narrative arc. So, Caleb Flynn, during his time on American Idol, he didn't get to the Hollywood rounds. This time, this is not American Idol. This is a fight for his life. Will he be set free for his wife's murder? That's where that question lies. Next, a judge fires back at a claim that he himself influenced the Paul Canero jury by telling one lawyer, "You're speculating." Judge Mario. You're gonna see where, for all you hockey fans, you're about to see exactly where I misspoke. Here we go. Judge Mark Lemieux. See? Not Mario, Mark. Judge Mark Lemieux pushed back sharply in court, telling defense attorneys they were speculating when they claimed he improperly influenced the Paul Canero jury, a challenge that puts the judge's conduct squarely under the spotlight as post-trial battles intensify. During a hearing tied to Canero's motion for a new trial, defense lawyers argued that Judge Lemieux's tone, rulings, and courtroom demeanor created an atmosphere that biased jurors against their client. Lemieux rejected that characterization outright, saying the defense was stretching isolated moments into unfounded accusations. Let's go to the article with that one. Full New Jersey. A judge will have to examine his own behavior as he weighs whether to new trial to a man convicted of murdering his brother and his 59-year-old Paul Canero was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and aggravated arson for the deaths of his brother, 50-year-old Keith Canero, and Canero's wife and 2 children, 45-year-old Jennifer, 11-year-old Jesse, and 8-year-old Sophia, were killed in the home. Investigators said both Keith and Jennifer were shot to death, and the children were stabbed. After they were attacked, their home was set on fire. Prosecutors said Paul Canero then returned to his own home and set it on fire in an attempt to conceal his involvement. Let's see. On Monday, Paul Canero returned to court as his attorneys fight for a new trial. In a brief filled in advance of Monday's hearing, the defendant claimed in part Judge Mark Lemieux's visible frustration with the defense during the trial led to the guilty verdict. But Lemieux challenged the allegations, saying there was no way his actions could have affected the jury's decision. All those instances cited in the defense's brief did not occur in the jury's presence, meaning they were not even physically in the courtroom or happened at sidebar. Can you walk me through your theory on how these incidents that the jury did not observe, how they actually could have impacted their ability to decide this case fairly? Andy Murray, representing Paul Canero, responded that the issue was not just how the judge treated the defense team, but how kind and lighthearted the rest of the courtroom environment was. Let's see. Andy Murray, representing Paul Canero, responded that the issue was not just how the judge treated the defense team, but how kind and lighthearted the rest of the courtroom environment was. The juxtaposition of that lightheartedness with what I think was visible frustration on the court's part and just reacting to the party specifically, Murray said. It appeared to me that it would have been obvious to anybody looking at Your Honor was frustrated. Your Honor was annoyed. Oh boy. And this is out of the jury's sight. This was out of the jury's sight, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I had to stretch there. Because this guy is literally stretching for help. But Lemieux argued that there was no way to know what the jury saw or interpreted. You're speculating, he said. The only thing you said so far, out of fairness to you, is that it appeared to me that they would see this. But it's not like you were standing there staring at the jurors and they communicated with you in some way. It's not like you have any documented proof that actually there was some impact on them. Lemieux also noted that his jury instructions explicitly told the jury not to speculate about sidebars, to consider any interactions between the court and counsel, and not treat the judge's rulings as favoring either side. We would have had to have been in 2 different courtrooms to be able to say that argument was there. we would have had to have two different courtrooms to be able to say that there was somehow a manifest injustice in this trial. Prosecutor Christopher Decker said it in his argument Monday. Lemieux took the matter under consideration and said he would issue a written ruling in the future. No time frame was offered. Regardless, Paul Canero faces life in prison when he's sentenced. And when he do, Paul Canero faces a life in prison when he's sentenced, and his sentencing hearing is scheduled for May 12. So let me get to the details real quick. The judge's rebuttal is Judge Lemieux told the defense that their claims were speculation and not evidence, insisting his actions were consistent with maintaining order and efficiency during a complex, emotionally charged trial. The defense's team says the judge's visible frustration, interruptions, and reprimands, some in front of the jury, created an impression that the court viewed the defense as unreasonable or untrustworthy. Judicial bias claims are notoriously difficult to prove. The judge must show that let's see, where am I at? Eyes is bothering me, guys. So bear with me. The defense's arguments that let's see, reprimands, some in front of the jury, create a lasting impression that the court viewed the defense as unreasonable or untrustworthy. Judicial bias claims are notoriously difficult to prove. The defense must show not just irritation or impatience, but conduct that materially affected the fairness of the trial. Prosecutors argue the verdict was driven by overwhelming evidence, not the judge's tone, and that the defense is attempting to relitigate a case they lost decisively. The motion for a new trial hinges on whether the judge's behavior crossed the line from the courtroom management to prejudicial influence. Judge Lemieux's firm pushback signals no such line was crossed. Okay. If I were Paul Canero, this is one I would definitely back off of. And when I say Paul Canero, I mean his attorneys. I'm still trying to figure out how in the world is this guy. Sorry for the dead air, guys. I'm trying to think of what I want to say and how I want to say this, but I still think Canero's defense team need to lay off of this claim and lay off of it ASAP because it's gonna hurt in the long run. Paul Canero and his attorneys need to back off of this claim as soon as possible because if they're gonna use this claim for him to get a new trial, me being a doctor once. All right. I am trying to get my mind wrapped together because, like I said, this is part of a day-night doubleheader, and I'm on the first half of it right now. So, guys, bear with me. I will be in a lot better shape for tonight. Right now, we're gonna move onward. According to the district attorney, singer David is charged with brutal and the horrific murder of a missing teen. Here's what we got. LA prosecutors have formally charged singer David, real name David Burke, with the brutal and horrific murder of missing 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, calling the case one of the most disturbing child homicide files they've handled in years. Months after the body of a missing teenager was in the trunk of his car, a singer has been formally charged with her murder. 21-year-old David Burke, a prominent singer known as David, spelled lowercase d for lowercase v lowercase d, is charged with first-degree murder, continued lewd and lascivious acts with an individual under 14 years of age, and mutilating the remains of a human body. That's according to Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman on Monday. Burke had been taken into custody on suspicion of murder by the LA Police Department on last Friday. At the time, police said they were planning to present their case to prosecutors this week. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found dismembered in a car registered in Burke's name on what would have been her 15th birthday, September 8th, 2025. Investigators described her body as so severely decomposed that it took time for the medical examiner to determine her cause of death. I'll bring that to you tonight. On Monday, Hochman said that Rivas Hernandez was last seen alive on April 23rd, 2025, months before her body would eventually be found. A parent's nightmare is a situation where your daughter goes out one night and never comes back. Speaking of the victim's family, Hochman said that grief is incalculable. Hochman explained Burke is being charged with murder with special circumstances, which could carry a potential death sentence with a conviction. No determination has been made as to whether prosecutors will seek the death penalty. Hochman listed 3 special circumstances included with the charge. The first special circumstance is lying in wait. That was included because Hochman said that the victim was killed after she was invited to Burke's home in the Hollywood Hills on April 23rd of 2025, the last time she was ever seen. The second alleged special circumstance is that the murder was allegedly committed for financial gain. Hochman said that the evidence will show that Burke killed the victim to maintain the lucrative career the victim was threatening. And the third circumstance alleges that Burke killed a witness to an investigation into allegations that Burke was sexually abusing the underage victim. Hochman addressed why it took so long for the charges to be filed in the case, saying, in a situation where you don't have an eyewitness account or we can't point to a video that shows the killer killing someone, you have to go through the very rigorous and thorough investigation to look at all the digital and forensic evidence. You have to speak with witnesses who are cooperative and some who are not cooperative. My duty is not to fuel speculation, it's to deliver justice, and that requires patience and discipline on everybody's part. That came from Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McDonald. This investigation was driven by a single purpose: to secure justice for Celeste Rivas Hernandez and for those who loved her. Rivas and Hernandez's cause of death was not immediately released. Hodgman said he planned to ask the medical examiner to unseal that report. For the record, I for the record again, that report has been unsealed, and I will give you that result tonight on the final word after dark. Right now, here are the details. Prosecutors described the killing as brutal and horrific, emphasizing the condition of Celeste's remains and the steps taken to conceal them. Celeste's body was found in September inside 2 cadaver bags in the front trunk of Burke's abandoned Tesla, which had been sitting in an impound lot after being towed. Burke had already been named the target of a Los Angeles grand jury. The strongest indicator, prosecutors were preparing for an indictment. Family subpoenas. Investigators have subpoenaed Burke's parents and brother, suggesting prosecutors believe multiple people may have information about the timeline or aftermath. A security hold remains on the medical examiner's report, meaning the official cause of death and full forensic filings are still sealed, which currently, right now, are not. Burke's legal teams has previously said he was cooperating, though law enforcement sources have disputed that characterization. The next steps, Burke is expected to be arraigned on the upgraded charges in the coming days, with prosecutors signaling more filings could follow as the evidence is unsealed. So all I ask you guys to do now is stick around later this evening for the cause of death and if any charges have been upgraded in this case. That's coming up later tonight. A final word after dark. Next, this one's for the Justice Serve file. A narcissistic psychopath was sentenced for murdering his wife on Valentine's Day. Let me go ahead and get that set up, and then I can give you all the give you that work, as the kids say. A judge has sentenced Tyler James Meyer, described by prosecutors as a narcissistic psychopath, for the Valentine's Day murder of his wife Deborah Meyer, a killing authorities say was driven by control, long pattern of emotional. Yet the killer says he's not evil during sentencing. An Indiana man was sentenced to the maximum penalty after a judge found he showed regret but no signs of remorse for killing his wife. 35-year-old Taylor James Meyer was convicted of murder in the death of his wife Deborah Meyer, 36, by a jury in January. The victim was found stabbed 40 times with a kitchen knife on Valentine's Day last year. The defendant allegedly confessed to police that he killed his wife, explaining that the couple's marriage had been strained after he had seen a photo of her holding hands with another man the month prior. That was reported by Law and Crime at that time. He's a narcissistic psychopath, and he only cares about himself. Those are the words coming from the victim's best friend, Emily Durbin, at sentencing. I like to go ahead and count to 40 to be sure he knows how many times he had the opportunity to stop while in the act. Not just before, when he beat her and choked her unconscious too, Durbin said. Then she slowly counted to 40 with no visible reaction from the defendant. I'm going to stop right there, and I want you all to imagine this. And I'm even as I'm talking about, I'm going to try to imagine this too. Now keep this part in mind. I am looking right across the way at my lovely wife. How you doing, Lady Outlaw? All right. Uh huh. let's just say for the sake of what I'm demonstrating here. Say our marriage is strained. It's rocky at best, and I go ahead and make the decision instead of going to divorce court or trying to set up some kind of mediation where we can try to work things out. Instead, I take a kitchen knife. One. Could have stopped it right there. One, right? No. Two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And note as I'm counting, my wife is shaking her finger. No, you could have stopped then. You could have stopped then. And she's right. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40. Yes, he did. Yeah. Yeah. And like the best friend said in the in a victim impact statement, she slowly counted to 40 and the defendant had no visible reaction. She said that she counted to 40 to be sure he knows how many times he had the opportunity to stop while in the act. Not just before, when he beat her and choked her unconscious too. Then the slow count to 40, and the defendant showed no visible reaction. The article continues to say that the defendant told investigators that the couple had fought on the day of the murder, Valentine's Day, because he had taken time to prepare a Valentine's Day meal that she didn't appreciate. It was the hardest I've ever tried, he told detectives after his arrest. Deborah Meyer's brother, Albert North, told the court through tears about what happened in the wake of her murder, saying, "Less than 5 hours after those police knocked on my door and woke me up, I was in your house, cutting the bloody carpet up from where you killed her." Speaking of the couple's children, North addressed the defendant directly. "They will never know your name. They will never remember your face. They will have her last name, and they will never again be burdened by yours." Taylor Meyer's defense attorney, Brett Beteau, told the judge he had no witnesses to present at the sentencing because no one was willing to appear. "In my mind, it might be appropriate to do some investigating as to why that is," he said. "That obviously would be a significant criminal offense of obstruction of justice if that has, in fact, happened." Beteau questioned each of the victim's family members who delivered victim impact statement about potential involvement in the harassment, which each witness flatly denied. The defendant took the opportunity to address the courtroom, saying that he was a good citizen before his wife's death. "I was a polite, friendly, and respectful person," he said. "I love Debbie to this day. I miss her every day, despite how evil many of you want me to be. I don't consider myself an evil person. I did a terrible, horrendous thing in a fit of rage. Of course I regret it, and I would change it in a heartbeat if I had the power. While prosecutors had recommended the maximum sentence of 65 years for Taylor Meyer, his defense attorney had an alternate suggestion. I don't think any incarceration really isn't needed because he realizes what happened here. He realizes it was his mistake and nobody else's, Betea'S said. And to warehouse somebody in jail really has diminishing returns, makes them more of a criminal. I will save my commentary for that in a little bit. Judge Nicholas Carafa sided with the prosecution. I think you probably regret what happened, but I don't think you show a sign of remorse whatsoever. My fear is that the shrapnel from that night won't be fully realized for years to come, he said as he handed down the sentence. Mr. Betea'S said the maximum sentence is reserved for the worst of the worst, and I shudder to think of how this could get worse. First off, I want to say I applaud Judge Nicholas Carafa because he said all the right things at the right time. Here's the details before I go right into my own commentary on it. The prosecutor's characterization calling Meyer a narcissistic psychopath is citing his lack of remorse, history of coercive control, and the cold, calculated nature of the killing. Evidence showed Meyer attacking Deborah during an argument, then attempt to stage the scene to look like a sudden medical emergency. Prosecutors emphasized the symbolic cruelty, killing his wife on a day meant to celebrate love and partnership. The judge imposed a lengthy prison term, noting Meyer's dangerous personality structure and the need to protect the public. Deborah's relatives delivered emotional victim impact statements describing her as a loving mother and friend whose life was stolen by someone she trusted. The defense's posture as Meyer's attorneys arguing that he acted in a moment of emotional overwhelm, but the court rejected that narrative, citing the evidence of planning and post-crime behavior. I'm gonna say this, and I've said this many times during editions of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Guys, if you and your significant other are on the rocks and it seems irreconcilable, pack your stuff, get out, or have your significant other pack their stuff and leave your house. The next step would be go to divorce court. Now, sure, yeah. I know a lot of us are like me. We don't believe in divorce. But if it has to go that route, it has to go that route. The last thing you end up being, the last title you want to have on you is criminal defendant. For what? For killing someone you supposedly loved. So yes, I agree with the prosecutor that Taylor James Meyer is a narcissistic psychopath, not only for the killing, but here at this point where he shows absolutely zero remorse. Regret maybe, but remorse no. If he had any kind of remorse, if he had been really thinking about it, like Deborah Meyer's best friend said, he would have stopped at one. And that's all I got to say about that. Next up, despite former Sheriff Sean Mickey Stein's request to have him removed, a judge will remain in place. Judge Christopher Corrin will remain on the case despite repeated attempts by former Sheriff Sean Mickey Steins to have him removed, which is a clear signal from the court that Steins' accusations of bias do not meet the legal threshold for the judge's recusal. We're in Whitesburg, Kentucky, where the Supreme Court there has ruled against the former sheriff charged with murder, which means the current judge will remain on his case. 44-year-old Sean Mickey Steins is accused of killing Letcher County Circuit Judge Kevin Mullins, age 54, in the judge's chambers on September 19th of 2024. At the time of the shooting, Steins was the elected sheriff of Letcher County, while Steins has admitted to shooting the judge in an act that was caught on video. He has said in court filings that he was mentally incapacitated and lacked the ability to form the intent to kill when he pulled the trigger. Steins had renewed his request to have Judge Christopher Corrin removed from his case after Corrin refused to recuse himself. Steins had based his request on a video that showed Corrin with Mullins 1 week before the shooting at a meeting of the Kentucky Judicial Commission on Mental Health. That video showed Corrin and Mullins sitting next to each other for almost the entire 2-hour gathering. To which I say, yeah, so they were seated together. So what? Deputy Chief Justice Robert Conley wrote the following opinion. It stretches the imagination to believe that mere joint attendance at a professional conference and the apparently random decision of Judge Corrin to sit next to the victim would be cause to question whether Judge Corrin could be unbiased. Judges frequently attend professional conferences in the same space as other judges and lawyers with whom they regularly practice. Finding this routine practice to create a disqualifying conflict amongst those in attendance would destroy the very purpose of these conferences to promote joint and mutual learning of the law and the sharing of varied professional opinions in the greater interest of justice. Conley noted that Steins presented no evidence suggesting Corrin and Mullins had any relationship beyond being acquaintances. Though Steins' motion suggested that Corrin could be seen nodding when Mullins talked about his plans for upcoming events in the video, the facts as alleged simply do not support a conclusion that a reasonable person would question Judge Corrin's impartiality. As it stands right now, no trial date in Steins' trial has been set. All right, so let's run this back with all the details. This adds to another failed attempt. He's tried more than once to push Judge Corrin off the case, arguing the judge's rulings have and tone show prejudice. Here we go with another one claiming that a judge's tone showing prejudice. The court's reasoning is that judges are not removed simply because the defendant dislikes their decisions. The court found no proof of bias, only dissatisfaction with prior rulings. Recusal requires clear evidence of personal animus, conflict, or conduct that compromises neutrality. Steins' filings didn't meet that bar. The prosecutors say the motions are strategic, an effort to delay proceedings and reset the courtroom dynamic. The judge's posture, while remaining on the case, he signals confidence in his impartiality and in the integrity of the process. What's next? With the recusal issue settled for now, the case moves forward under Cochran's oversight, which will tighten the timeline for pre-trial maneuvering. finally, on this AM edition of the Final Word, we have a retrial in progress right now, the Julio Fulio trial. State of Florida versus Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy. They're now facing a Jacksonville jury. This retrial centers on the 2021 ambush killing of Jacksonville rapper Julio Fulio, real name Charles Jones, who was gunned down outside of a Holiday Inn after celebrating his birthday. Prosecutors say the four defendants coordinated the attack, tracked Julio Fulio's movements, and executed a planned hit. The defense, on the other hand, argues that the state's case is built on unreliable witnesses and inconsistent digital evidence. Oh, those four defendants are, again, Isaiah Chance, age 23, Sean Gathright, age 20, Rashad Murphy, age 32, and Davion Murphy, 29. All have pled not guilty to charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in the shooting death of Charles Jones, a.k.a. Julio Fulio. Jones was shot to death in what police called a targeted gang-related killing on June 23rd. Investigators say Chance, Gathright, Davion Murphy, and Rashad Murphy traveled together from their homes in Jacksonville, Florida, and followed the victim southwest to Tampa, where he planned to celebrate his 26th birthday. Also along for the journey was Alicia Andrews, age 23, Chance's girlfriend, who was previously found guilty for her role in the shooting. Prosecutors, the motive for the shooting stemmed from a years-long gang war in Jacksonville. Jones was a documented member of the gang 6 Block, which was an open rivalry with both Ace's Top Killers, or ATK, and the 1200. The four co-defendants are all members of either ATK or 1200. Andrews was not a member of any gang. Surveillance video at a homes to suites in Tampa shows the gunman getting out of vehicles and beginning to shoot at cars associated with the victim. Jones was killed and 3 other people were injured. Tampa detectives said the gunmen were Gathright, Murphy, Rashad Murphy, and Davion Murphy. Prosecutors say Chance and Andrews served as scouts for locations as they searched for the victim. Judge Michelle Siska will preside over the trial. She had previously presided over the Andrews criminal trial. She will not, however, preside over Andrews' sentencing, after Florida's Second District Court of Appeals removed her following a defense motion, claiming she was biased against him. Prosecutors have filed a motion appealing that decision. All 4 of those defendants face a potential death sentence if they're convicted. Today, court is dark. They're gonna pick up on this case on Monday. Here's the details in this. The first trial ended without a verdict after the jurors were deadlocked, forcing the court to declare a mistrial. Prosecutors vowed to retry the case immediately. They alleged the 4 men acted together using social media posts, location data, and surveillance footage to track Julio Fulio before opening fire in the hotel parking lot. The defense's posture is the attorneys saying that the state is overreaching, relying on circumstantial evidence and witnesses with credibility issues. While prosecutors have avoided labeling the case as gang-driven, investigators have acknowledged long-standing tensions between rival Jacksonville rap groups. Again, the key evidence is surveillance video from the hotel, cell site geolocation data, ballistics linking multiple firearms, and testimony from witnesses who claim the defendants discussed the shooting. Here's what's at stake. Each defendant is facing a death sentence if they're convicted. With a hung jury behind them, both sides are expected to sharpen their strategies. The state tightening its timeline and the defense attacking every inference. Tonight, I have a lawyer for a mother accused of killing a baby, saying he was caught in an embarrassing situation. A set of parents sentenced for disgusting, disgraceful, and terrible behavior. Another lawsuit accusing Kylie Jenner of ignoring staff harassment, discrimination, and more. Prosecutors are seeking the death penalty for a woman accused of killing 2 exes in 2 counties. Another trial date is set for a man accused of murdering a woman from a fetish website. As promised, I will have the cause of death revealed in Celeste Rivas Hernandez's murder after David's arrest. A woman is charged with a realtor's 2011 cold case murder, released on bond. This is an update from a story I brought to you last week. Athena Strand's killer suffered a difficult childhood, according to witnesses. We'll find out exactly what kind of trying times Tanner Horner had. Joseph Lawson, convicted of Crystal Rogers' murder, said that the trial was fundamentally unfair. And a judge declares, "You are bullying this court," and threatens an attorney with contempt. We'll find out what that's all about. All right. So stick around. I'll be back later this evening for the final word after dark with all those stories and updates you do not want to miss. But for now, I thank you all so much for joining me this now afternoon. And I look forward to seeing you later tonight. Final word after dark. Until then, I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. And as always, this is Bethea'S Byte. And it's reloaded. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Drama-Free True Crime Destination. Please be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and support the channel through PayPal and Cash App. You can get your true crime news right here with no gimmicks, no drama, and no BS. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.